What is up? Welcome back to Ion Motive. I hope you are having a great day. I am super happy right now. I just finished up with my last class before spring break, so I've got the next week off. I'm going to be heading home after this. I'm going to be heading home in a few short hours. I've got a lot of work I want to do over spring break, a lot of work that I want to do for this page specifically, and I'm really looking forward to doing that. Today, I'm going to be talking about the side of self-improvement we neglect. I'm going to define that very shortly, but before we do that, I have a couple of quick announcements that I want to talk about. So first of all, I just recently updated my website. I did quite a bit to change it. I just made it look a little bit prettier. And in case you missed last week's episode, I did say that I will be adding a shop there in the near future, hopefully, where I'll be selling apparel, and a certain percentage of those total sales will be going to an organization that benefits mental health or something similar to that. Unfortunately, I don't have any products up right now. I've got quite a bit of work to do before it is completely ready, but I did change some things to the website. I did change some of the reading list. I updated it with some new books. I actually took off some old books as well because I feel like they're not as beneficial to what I'm talking about right now. I'm also probably not going to read them, so I took them off if I didn't think they were as helpful as I want them to be. But one of the books I added recently was this new book, Beyond Order, 12 More Rules for Life. I probably talked about this book way too much, or the first one, 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. I just love the book so much, and I just would highly recommend you read it, or any of those on my reading list. So again, if you're looking for new books, that's the place to go. Go check it out on my reading list. Use those links. It'll take you to Amazon, and you'll be able to purchase the books from there. But let's get back to today's episode. Let me ask you a question. What is self-improvement all about? I'll tell you what it is not about. It's not about getting rich. It's not about getting famous. It's not about being popular or looking cool. To me, it is about developing your character, becoming the most ideal version of yourself, the most full and complete version of yourself. That is what it's about. Developing your character, developing yourself to your ultimate potential. Let me ask you another question. How do you become this ideal version of yourself? I really think there are two big categories. Obviously, there are a number of different ways to reach your ideal character, to become the best version of yourself, but I think all of those ways probably boil down into these two categories. The first way is by exercising good thoughts, behaviors in action, exercising virtue, being courageous, being kind, helping others, things like that. Normally, we focus on that, and I think sometimes we forget the second way. The second way to developing your character, to develop yourself into the best possible version of yourself, is to eliminate the parts of yourself that are contrary to your ideal character. I'm getting a little philosophical. This is probably getting a little deep, so I'll try to explain it a couple different ways just so it's super simple. But the things about yourself that are bad, I don't want to just say that, parts of yourself that are flawed, parts of you that need change, parts of you that need to be worked on. Obviously, everybody has something or many things they need to work on, including myself. Before we get going any further, I just want to say, I don't do this podcast because I think I'm a better individual and I'm trying to put my thoughts in your head. I'm just trying to become the best version of myself. And I recognize too that I have those flaws that need to be worked on. So I'm going to be transparent. I'm going to talk about some of those flaws later in this episode. But I just wanted to say that. Again, nobody is perfect. Everybody has something they need to work on. And my goal with this episode today is to get you to start thinking about that. I'm going to challenge you. We're going to be focusing on that side of self-improvement, the more painful part. I think one of the reasons we don't think about that is because it is difficult to think about. It is difficult to think about your own flaws. It is difficult to think about parts of yourself that need to be worked on. It's uncomfortable. It really is. But nonetheless, it needs to be worked on, because if you're really trying to become that full version of yourself, those flawed parts are holding you back, and they need to be addressed. They need to be worked on. As a final note, before we begin this episode, I do want to say that within these episodes and within the stuff I post, I probably will contradict myself at one point or another. And that's not because I'm trying to be deceiving. I'm trying to spread information that is not useful. But I'm reading and learning a lot. I'm only 21 years old. I've been reflecting on my ideas much more. And because of that, the ideas I had are bound to change. They're bound to improve. So I just want to say that in case sometimes I do contradict myself. Maybe I said something in episode 2 that doesn't align with what I say today. I just wanted to be clear with that. That's probably going to happen. But now, let's get into the episode. There are really 3 reasons I want to talk about this side of self-improvement that we neglect. The first reason is that I think a lot of people have a misconception about what self-improvement is actually about, or what it should be about, at least. I think this is most obvious on social media, where people are talking about self-improvement and they're presenting ideas or sharing ideas that are really not helpful. So what is an example of this? I've seen men, pretty ripped guys, right? They're just posting videos of themselves working out and things like that. And their page is dedicated to becoming an alpha male. That's the message they're trying to share. First of all, I'm not even really sure what they're trying to go for. That just seems like a vague title. But anyways, when they're talking about things like that, I have seen videos of people say, this is how you become an alpha male. Don't text a girl back when she texts you. Wait hours so she finally wants you. Like, how is that beneficial to your character? How is that kind, right? That doesn't make sense. That's ridiculous. And I have an issue with that because most people on social media are younger. So they're going on these websites and seeing that. That is why I think it's so important to talk about, because people are sharing these ideas and they can really hurt people. Or another example, I've seen people say that another way to become an alpha male is to take cold showers. I've talked about taking cold showers before, saying that they can help you build resilience because it's super uncomfortable, it's cold. I don't do them. I tried and I gave up on that. I like a nice warm shower, especially in the morning. I gave up on that. But let's use that as an example. If you just take a cold shower, yeah, you might be developing your mindset a little bit, but that doesn't make you a better person. That doesn't make your character better. You're just taking a cold shower. So you should not mistake that action for being the reason you are a good person. You shouldn't say, oh, I take cold showers, I'm improving, I'm better than you. And unfortunately, I see a lot of people do things like that. And this happens with men and women. I've seen many examples, but you get my point. I think there's a good lesson here about your values, about your highest value. For me, when I talk about self-improvement, my highest value is to develop my character. I want to become the best person that I possibly can be. I do this page for that reason. Obviously, I would love for this to become a full-time job eventually. That's why I'm working so hard on it, because I'm very passionate about what I'm doing, and I think it's important. I think it needs to be talked about more often. I'm not doing it to be rich and famous. That is not my top value. My top value is to develop myself. I think by working on this page, by reading, by learning, by working out, by talking about all those different things, I'm becoming a better version of myself. But when you have fame, money, or alpha male at the top of your values, your actions to reach that value are probably going to be flawed. right? As we saw with the example where the guy doesn't respond to the girl or mistreats the girl because he wants to have the image of becoming an alpha male. So prioritize your values. Make sure that your character is your top value. If you're focused on self-improvement, that is what it's all about. Prioritize that goal. That's the first point I wanted to talk about today. The second point I wanted to talk about that I want to challenge you to think about is that we just accept our flaws a lot of the times and we don't think about them. Again, my goal with this episode is to challenge you to start thinking about your flaws, to take a conscious effort to better yourself, to rid yourself of the parts of you that are holding you back, the parts of you that deserve to change. That's painful to think about, but we need to think about it. It needs to be addressed. It's important. Let me make this a little more clear with an example. I've seen this a lot on Facebook for some reason from a relationship page or something like that. But they'll take a picture of a tweet and it will say something like, oh, if we're in a relationship, don't expect me to change. You just have to accept me for who I am. You have to accept me as I am. Like, are you serious? That makes no sense. You're telling me, I've seen this shared by like 20-year-old people, right? So you're telling me that from the age of 0 to 20, you have it all figured out. You don't think there's a single part of you that deserves to change? That's just completely absurd, right? You have 70 to 80 years to live. You should expect to change. You should expect to become a better person in that time for the rest of your life. And I'm not even saying beat yourself up, right? Everybody is flawed. Don't say, oh my gosh, I do this. I'm a little judgmental. I'm such a terrible person. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying accept where you are currently at and take responsibility for where you're going to end up. Accept where you are, but also accept the fact that you can become a little bit better each and every day. And those little efforts, those little efforts to develop your character are going to be extremely beneficial to you and those around you. That's going to help you to become that whole version of yourself. Kind of a random thought, but this is my big issue with astrology. I've seen people say things that just, to me, seem a little bit absurd. If you like astrology, that's completely fine. I really do not care. It does not bother me. But I have seen people use astrology as a way to justify their poor behavior. They'll say, oh, I'm an Aquarius. I think that's technically what I am. That's why I got upset. I'm just hot-tempered. That's how I was born. That's how the stars were aligned when I was born. And because of that, I get a little more angry. Okay, that is a huge issue. When you say something like that, and not even just for astrology, just in general, but when you put the responsibility on somebody else or something else, you don't give yourself the ability to change. If I blame it on somebody else, then why should I change at all? Because it's not me. That is a dangerous idea. When I blame somebody else for my flaws, I'm saying I don't need to change because it's not my fault. You take away the responsibility from yourself, which is just completely ridiculous. Take responsibility for the parts of you that need to change. Now, let me share my personal example. I think at times I can be a little bit judgmental. Actually, no, at times I am judgmental, and I'm not outward about it. I don't just go up to people and say things, but I've seen people, or I'll watch people do things and I'll think, gosh, why are they doing it like that? What are they doing? That's such a poor choice to make. That's a really bad idea. They could be doing it this way. They could be doing it so much better. To make this a little more clear, I think I do this in the gym sometimes. I'll see guys come in and they'll just come in, work on their arms for 20 minutes and then leave. And then they talk about, oh, I'm not really seeing results. And part of me just wants to be like, well, it's because you're doing this. Maybe if you did this. I think one of the reasons I'm judgmental is because I genuinely care. I want them to do better, but it's not my place to judge them for their effort. right? Because there are parts of me that are flawed that need to be worked on. There are things I do that are just ridiculous that I could be doing a whole lot better that would help me in the long run. So who am I to say, hey, you need to be doing this when I'm not doing the same thing myself? Maybe it's not in the gym, maybe I'm making lesser decisions in another area of my life, but you get my point. It's not my place to be judgmental when I'm not a perfect individual. That's part of me, that's a part of myself that I know I need to change. Like I said, I think honestly it comes out of a desire to help people. I genuinely care, but it's manifesting in a way that's harmful, in a way that's not helping anyone. So I know I need to work on that. I'm not going to blame my judginess on something that's outside of my control. I'm not going to just say, oh, that's just my personality. I just like to be a perfectionist. That's what it is. That's how I am. Or I'm not going to blame my OCD. Oh, I like things done this way. They need to be done this way. That's just ridiculous. That's not how it goes. It's within me. It's in my control. I can change it. I'm responsible for it. It should be changed. I need to work on it, and I do try to do that. The big lesson with this one is you might be okay where you are, and you should accept where you are. Don't beat yourself up, right? But accept your flaws so that you can start working on them. Don't accept them and then just forget about them. Accept them and recognize that, okay, this is something that needs to be addressed. I'm going to take a conscious effort to make myself better. The third reason I think this is so important to talk about is because I am a firm believer that change starts with the individual. That good things usually start with the individual. And because of that belief, I think it is true. I believe it's true. Maybe you disagree, but I think it is true that the easiest way to get rid of the bad parts of the world are to get rid of the bad parts of yourself. I've seen this video by T.D. Jakes. He's a bishop down in Texas, I believe, but he's a great speaker. I'm sure you've seen some of his videos. They've been turned into memes because he's got such a powerful voice. But anyways, he has this video called Blind Spots. I'll put that in the show notes because it's a video that's worth watching. But he says some pretty powerful things, that there's just parts of ourselves that we refuse to change. And one of the examples he said was that some people are nicer to strangers than they are to their own family. And those parts of us are harming others and they're harming ourselves. They're harming our character. I am also a huge believer in the butterfly effect. Here's why I believe change starts within the individual. Let's say somebody is rude to me. Somebody just is blatantly rude. I don't know what they do. Maybe they're just cussing me out. Maybe they're just taking all their anger out on me. And now I have those emotions. I have those feelings of pain, and I want to go take it out on somebody else. There's a couple of things I can do. When that person displaces their anger onto me, I could, one, throw it back at them, which just makes it worse, makes the situation way more painful than it has to be. Or I can take it and cast it onto somebody else, like we saw with the T.D. Jakes example I was just talking about. I can go take it out on my family. And again, that's destructive because, one, they're going to take it out on me. Two, they're going to displace that anger, that emotion, that hate onto somebody else as well. And then it just keeps going. It's just this cycle that doesn't stop. But if, when that person acts out towards me, if they act rude and I decide I'm not going to retaliate to them or to anybody else, that cycle stops, right? That pain stops. I can choose to not let it affect me. I can choose to not hurt somebody else. Similarly, if someone is kind to me, there's a good chance I'm going to be kind to them back, and that's going to make the whole situation a whole lot better. I'm going to be kind to another person, and that's going to make them better. And it's just this effect that also blows up, but in a much more positive way, in a happy way. It's the same thing with your character. When you act in a fashion that is contrary to your ideal self, that has the potential to spread to a number of different people, hurt a number of different people, even just from one silly action, from one silly behavior. Similarly, if I act in a manner that is aligned with the best version of myself, that's going to spread, but in a great way. I am a firm believer that that is true. So the lesson with this idea is that the changes you make to better your character are going to better those around you, are going to better the world. Even if you don't see it, that's usually how it goes. And if you don't do that, your flaws could hurt those around you, hurt the world, right? It's pretty easy to just blame other people. It's pretty easy to say, oh, this is unjust, this is evil, this needs to be addressed. And I think the way to address that in the long run, one of the great ways to address that is to look inward. Focus on the parts of yourself that need change. That is all I got. Let's wrap this up. Again, I think self-improvement is all about developing your character, becoming the best person you can become. Being courageous, being kind, acting out the virtues, all of those things. That is what it's ultimately about for me. And the way to do that is by exercising those good thoughts, behaviors, and actions, but also, and equally as important, focusing on the parts of yourself that need change. Again, that's painful, but it's worth doing, as we saw in today's episode. Yeah, that is all I got. That felt pretty good. I enjoy talking about episodes like this, kind of more philosophical ideas, some deeper ideas. I really enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to sharing more of my ideas about this kind of stuff in the near future. But again, that is all I got. I'm going to be working on this page more. I'm happy to be getting back to it. I've been shaky with school. I know I said I wanted to get these out on a weekly basis, and I started falling behind, but I'm going to be trying my best. Again, I'm going to try to keep getting that done. We'll see what happens, but I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please like, share, subscribe, review, yada, yada, yada. I hate asking for those things, but it is very beneficial to me if you do that. Share with a friend, share with somebody who, just likes this kind of stuff, who you think might enjoy this podcast. Yeah, nothing more to ask for you. Thank you very much for listening to this. I will see you next time on Ion Motive number 24. But until then, remember the Ion Motive. Live a charged life.